My dearest brothers and sisters. This is Hakann speaking. I greet you in peace and love. You have all my love and respect. I very much admire that many of you are able to maintain a good heart, despite all the darkness and harshness on your world. Today I would like to share one perspective about what is happening on Earth. This will not be the absolute and sole truth. Reality is more complex than what I will share today. I will generalize and I will omit things. So I do not suggest that you discard your current worldview and adopt this worldview. I only mean to say that different perspectives are useful at different times, and this perspective will be useful at certain times. This perspective is, practically everyone, including most light workers and most people receiving this message, are terrified. Even most people who don't think of themselves as being afraid, are actually terrified. It's nearly always fear that causes beings to not feel unconditional love towards others. Unconditional love is the default state of humans, and when unconditional love is not there, then usually it's because the person is afraid. Nearly always when there's judgment or anger or a desire to change others or to change the opinions of others, there's fear underneath that. After all, why would you need other people to change, if you were not personally afraid? Many of you have tried to point others to what you think is truth. And in many cases, you were indeed right, yet the other person did not even really consider your words. Often they just avoided the discussion and perhaps even insulted you. To us, this too is a sign of fear. The person's mind simply cannot handle the fear that would come from considering that their worldview is wrong. And so they shut down the source of the fear, namely the person who said something true but unconventional. Maybe they even insult or want to censor that person. There is actually some logic to this. If people experience too much fear, then they can literally start breaking down psychologically. So people not listening to other worldviews is, in a sense, a psychological defense mechanism against the danger that other people may shatter their worldview and cause them so much fear that they break down psychologically. Of course, the reason why this new piece of information cannot be handled properly is that the people nearly always were already in much fear. This new piece of information is the straw that breaks the camel's back. So the fundamental problem on your world is not that people refuse to see the truth, or that they are stupid, or that they are lazy, or that they are selfish, or that they are willfully blind. The fundamental problem is that they are so scared already that they're already suffering severe effects from this fear, and they cannot handle any more information that causes fear on top of that. I already mentioned one example of the severe effects that people are already suffering from fear, namely a lack of love and a tendency to judge and want to change others. Another example of the effects of fear are that so many people are addicted on your world. We're not only talking about drugs, but also to things that people know are bad for them, such as too much time behind a screen, alcohol, certain food, etc. These addictions temporarily numb the fear, but of course they do not really solve the issue. Thirdly, to cope with fear, many people either behave selfishly in order to protect themselves and give themselves maximal resources, or they just shrink their bubble of awareness to be so small that only happy things exist in their world. For example, they and their direct family and friends are doing okay, and so these people are happy because they have shrunk their bubble of awareness to be no larger than that. Usually these people do not spend much time or energy helping people outside of their bubble of awareness, and if people in their bubble of awareness are doing okay, usually these people are seemingly pretty happy. In a way, shrinking their bubble of awareness is actually more functional than either becoming selfish or becoming depressed, which is what most people become who genuinely look at what is going on in the world and try to help as best as they can. However, shrinking your bubble of awareness is still not a perfect solution, because if everyone is either selfish or shrinks their bubble of awareness, then there is no one who is actually selflessly trying to move humanity forward on a large level. If everyone is selfish or shrinks their bubble of awareness, then things do not go well for Earthlings. Most people want other people to not be selfish and to not shrink their bubble of awareness, yet most people don't want to be the ones who actually do this themselves. Most people who seem successful or happy, including most spiritual teachers who seem that way, are either secretly selfish or they have shrunk their bubble of awareness. They draw people in, because their lives seem uncomplicated and easy and fun, and often they just have a super simple recipe for happiness or success, such as manifesting tricks or buying Bitcoin or following their 1-2-3 plan. Or they say that they're just happy and life is uncomplicated. Well, life inside their bubble indeed is uncomplicated. People who have not become selfish and have not shrunk their bubble of awareness are usually either depressed, or they sound crazy to average people. It is a very rare individual indeed who has not shrunk their bubble of awareness, who has not become depressed and who is actively working to help humanity on a significant scale. And unfortunately, often these people are not the most rich or celebrated people on your world. Many people who present themselves as helping humanity on a large scale, are actually harming humanity. People who actually do that, usually aren't widely liked. That said, in practice, shrinking your bubble of awareness such that you can actually function, is probably a good idea. It doesn't help anyone if you have a big bubble of awareness but you're also depressed and unable to function. You can always expand your bubble of awareness later, once you have done enough spiritual work that you are able to handle seeing more things without collapsing mentally. I would also like to note that the dark controllers, who attempt to control humanity from behind the scenes, have weaponized fear. Their basic strategy is that they use their media to tell you to be afraid of some danger, and to also tell you that the solution to the fear is to do what they want you to do. For example, after 9/11 the dark controllers had the media tell people to be afraid of Muslim terrorists, and to tell Americans that the solution to this fear was to implement the so-called Patriot Act and to invade Iraq. Because the media told the people that invading Iraq would solve their fear, many people went along with that. Furthermore, there was some comfort to be found in being one of the people in the herd, all of whom had the same opinion. That felt safe. But of course, fundamentally invading Iraq did not solve the fear that Americans had. This basic strategy has been repeated many times. The mainstream media tells you to be afraid of something and then it tells you that you can solve your fear by supporting what the dark controllers want you to support. This is one of the reasons why we recommend not watching mainstream media. I would also like to take this opportunity to say that I very much disagree with the tactics of the gray hats, who sometimes have been called white hats, which is basically to terrify the population into waking up. To us, this is like trying to solve a fire by pouring gasoline on it. You don't solve an epidemic of fear by making people more afraid. How do you solve an epidemic of fear? Well, how would you treat a child who has a mistaken belief but is also terrified and crying? That is a good starting point. If you treat other people, as well as yourself, as you would treat a terrified child, then you will indeed be the one who you may have been looking for. The observation path that I have shared previously can help. You can find it by searching for Hakann, the observation path. Additionally, if you observe an emotion or thought, you can ask yourself if there are any emotions hidden behind them. Very often fear hides behind other emotions, such as anger or annoyance or judgment about other people. So, there is one thing I have not yet shared during this message, and that is, what are people actually afraid of? Well, different people are afraid of different things. Some fears are well known on your world, such as the fear of being abandoned or the fear of not being good enough. However, there is one very deep fear that many people have, but this fear is not commonly known on Earth. It is the fear that you will never again reunite with Source. The next time you experience a so-called negative emotion, you can ask yourself, is underneath this emotion the fear that I will never again reunite with Source? For some of you, the answer will be no, that is not the underlying fear here. But some of you will have a major positive spiritual breakthrough by asking yourself that question. For indeed, Source does love you unconditionally and endlessly. And unless you commit unbelievably large and horrible atrocities, or unless you sell your soul to demons, you will one day become one with Source again. This I can guarantee. With large and horrible atrocities, I mean worse things than even murdering several people, because most of us have had lives where we did that and yet we're still here on this path back towards Source. I hope this gave you another perspective. As I stated before, what I presented today is not the one and only true perspective. But it is one potentially useful perspective. It is my hope that you will be able to switch between perspectives, like putting on different kinds of glasses for different situations. I love you very much. Unbelievably good times are coming in the medium term. Your star brother, Hakann.